we'll show you. Yesterday we were speaking about Perek Aleph Pasuk Yud Zayin, which is on page Perek Aleph Pasuk Yud Zayin, which is on page 942. 942. So we had said. Let's read the pasuk inside again. It's 6 lines from the bottom. Lo sakiru panim b'mishpat. You must not play favorites. Literally recognize faces in judgment. Kakoton kagodol tishmaun. Small or big you shall hear. Lo saguru mipnei ish. Don't be intimidated. Ki hamishpat le'elokimhu. The judgment is God's. Ve'adavar asher yaksha mikem takrivun olayu shma'ativ. So we were speaking yesterday about the idea that Moshe Rabbeinu from Talmidei Yoser Mikulam, that you learn more from your disciples than anybody else. But there's another idea over here, which is in Beis Din, there has to be complete impartiality on the part of the judges. And not only there has to be impartiality, the litigants, anything that may intimidate one of them, if the other one is given that privilege, you're not allowed to do. For example, if one of them is, if you can't have one of the guys sitting and the other guy standing, because the guy who's standing feels I'm a second-class citizen over here, and that's going to intimidate him. He won't be able to present his claims properly. So there's even a halacha that if one of them is dressed a certain way, he's dressed very fancy, Beis Din said, will say to him, either provide him with fancy clothes or change into regular clothes. But you can't be dressed in that way. Because why? Because you see, this teaches a very important principle of impressions, and not only first impressions and impressions in general. Even a Beis Din who's looking at a guy, this guy looks bedraggled, and this guy looks dressed. He's dressed in a fancy Italian 3-piece suit. It does something to you. Anybody who goes for a job interview. When you go for your first job interview after 4 years of college, now for 4 years you have basically dressed like a savage, and two-toned hair with an earring, and all of a sudden you're clean shaven with a 3-piece suit going to interview for your first job. Now the guy sitting behind the desk, he knows that. You can't, but you have to make that impression. Impressions carry, because the impression is also that you know. The fact that you're making an impression means you're a person who knows you have to make an impression. That is also an impression. The fact that you recognize that you have to make an impression is an impression. When Rav Shach Zatzal told there was a guy in a shidduch. So the guy who happened to go on the shidduch, he happened to be very, very short. And he's been going out to meet a girl. So he said to Rav Shach, "What should I do? I'm short. What should I do?" So Rav Shach said, "Put lifts in your shoes." So he said, "Yeah, but Rebbe, even if this works out, eventually she's going to see that I'm not that tall." He said, "It doesn't matter. There's a first impression. She'll have her first impression is that you're tall, or taller. But the first impression is very, very powerful that a person makes. So the Torah is telling you, even a judge is susceptible to that. Even a judge is susceptible to this guy's dressed well and he's not. Dress him the same way, or you change into his clothes. That's the first thing. The other idea here is that where those secure part of it. Yeah, okay. Next one. Take a look at Pasuk Chav Beis. We're continuing on now. We're going to go through a few more psukim. Moshe Rabbeinu then goes on page 944, 4 lines from the top, and now he starts talking about the incident with the spies. Moshe Rabbeinu repeats the incident with the spies, and he says like this: "Vatikravun elai kulchem, you all approached me. Vatomru nishlacha anoshim lefaneinu, let us send men ahead of us. V'yachperu lanu esa aretz, and they shall spy out the land." Now, keep your finger on the place over here and turn back to Parashat Shlach for a second. Let's go to Parashat Shlach where Moshe sends the spies. I'll tell you in a second. Page 798. 798. You'll notice that over here, right at the top of the page on 798, it says, "Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe lemor," Shlach lecha anoshim v'yasuru es eretz Canaan. First Hashem says, Moshe, you send men, and they will spy out the land. Here, where we are over here, Moshe Rabbeinu says, you people approached me, and you said, let's send men ahead of us, v'yachperu lanu es ha'aretz. Now, what's the difference between v'yasuru and v'yachperu? V'yasuru comes from the Hebrew word yitaron, which means the benefits. Go see the benefits of the land. Go see the positive aspects of the land. V'yachperu means go digging to look up at, it's got a negative implication. A negative implication. Okay, so there's no accident that the Torah switches. Page 944, Avram. There's no accident that the Torah makes that switch. Number one. Number two, you see that the Torah fills in over here the details. How did it all start? Here it sounds like in Parashat, it sounds like Hashem said to Moshe, go send spies. And now when Moshe repeats the story, he's giving us the background. You people came to me and told me that you want me to check out the land. And I consulted with Hashem, and Hashem said, yeah, go send spies. So the Torah fills in some of the missing pieces over here. But what's interesting is, remember what was the punishment for the spies? What happened? They're 40 years in the desert. And then what happened every year on Tisha B'Av? What happened every year on Tisha B'Av?
They dug graves.
They dug graves and got in the graves, right? They dug, and then 15,000 people didn't get up the next morning. Look at the word v'yachperu. What does v'yachperu mean? To dig. You told me, let them go dig in the land, meaning dig up information on the land. The punishment is midah keneged midah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu pays. You get what you deserve. You're going to be digging all right. Every year, you're going to be digging graves. That's your punishment. For the word chofer is to dig. V'yachperu, chofer, it's exactly what the word means. And therefore, your punishment is, you want to dig, you're looking for the negative, I'll show you what the negative is. Every year you're going to be digging graves in the desert. Now look at Rashi. Look at Rashi on Pasuk, here in Pasuk Chav Beis on page 944. A very telling Rashi. First Rashi on the page, right column, top of the column. Vatikru v'nolai kulchem. Be'irbuvia. Be'irbuvia means you came in a chaotic mass. Ulahalon omer vatikruvun elai. Later on it says, vatikruvun elai kulchem kol roshei shivteichem, the heads of your tribes, the zikdeichem, vatomru hein heranu. That's by Har Sinai. By Har Sinai you came and said, oi, Hashem has shown us His glory. You know, we can't have Hashem. We can't have Hashem appear to us. We need you. You be the intermediary. Says Rashi, osa kreva haisa hogenes. When you approached me there by Har Sinai, that was proper. Yelodim mechabdim esazkedim, the younger ones honor the older ones. Visholchum lifnehem, they sent the elders first. Vizakenim mechabdim esharoshim, and the elders allowed the leaders laleches lifnehem. Aval kan vatikruvun elai kulchem. Oh, here you massed on me. Be'irbuvia. Yeladim dochavim es hazakenim, v'zakenim dochavim es haroshim. Everybody's pushing each other. A mass, a tish. Right? Everybody's pushing. So the commentaries ask like this. This is all part of Moshe Rabbeinu's rebuke of the Jewish people. Moshe Rabbeinu is rebuking the Jewish people. The question is, I understand that it's a rebuke if you talk about everybody's pushing each other. Why does he mention, all of a sudden throw in later, what happened later at Har Sinai was, when he talks about that, he says, yeah, the Har Sinai event, that was all respectful. That was done with a tremendous respect. And why are you throwing in something positive if you're in the middle of a rebuke over here? Why is that something positive? The answer is that that's also a rebuke. What's the rebuke? The rebuke is, when it comes to something negative, everybody's up to something, you're up to no good. Everybody come to massing in. When it comes to a mitzvah, oh no, go ahead, you do the mitzvah. No, all of a sudden you turn polite. Meaning, why didn't you feel the same urgency there that you felt over here? If it was really important, you'd be running for it. When it comes to, if I would throw $100 bill on the ground and say it's Hefker, I'm throwing a $100 bill and I'm going to say, hey, it's free. Anybody who wants it can take it. Right? What if I would put a mezuzah on the table? I'd say, anybody who wants can take the mezuzah, put it up on the door over there. We need a mezuzah on the door. No, you go. No, you do it. Where's the urgency? How come over there for that you got the urgency? That's a criticism right there. Not that you should go pushing. You never push. When the Sefer Torah comes out, every once in a while you get elbowed. No, don't elbow anybody to kiss the Sefer Torah. Don't elbow anybody. I had a guy in the other yeshiva, to this day, he never forgot it. So I would stand, kiss the Sefer Torah. This guy wanted to get at that Sefer Torah. And every once in a while, as he went to the Sefer Torah, so he'd kind of, I get a little, not painful, but he kind of a shoulder, or, a little jostle. And so I decided one day I'm going to teach him a lesson. So what I did was I boxed him out. I just boxed him out. I just stood there and blocking the aisle, and he was behind me, and I could see he's trying to figure out what to do. And I just he was a basketball player. He was a good basketball player, and I kind of purposely boxed him out. And he was like behind me like this, and I could see he's trying to figure out. There was no room to move in other direction, and in the meantime, they took the Sefer Torah away, and I just turned around and said, "I boxed you out on purpose." And he looked at me, he goes, "Oh," because he understood right away why I did it. You want to go kiss the Sefer Torah, but nobody needs to be jostled. Nobody should be pushed. Nobody should be shoved. So Moshe Rabbeinu is not encouraging that. He's just saying, compared to here also you should have come politely. And it shows you your priorities in life. Sometimes it happens in a house where a kid, let's say a kid, I'm not telling you to do it this way, but just listen to what happens and what's communicated. A kid accidentally flicks a light switch on Shabbos. And, oops, oi. I say, okay, all right, just try to be careful, okay? Just try to be careful next time. The same kid accidentally knocks a glass jar off the table, and it shatters. Would you watch what you're doing? Why are you so careless? What did you just communicate to the kid? That is more important than Shabbos. That's more important than Shabbos. That vase or that glass plate is more important than Shabbos desecration. They were both accidents. They're both accidents. It's one thing if the kid's getting wild, the kid's goofing around and knocks it off. But let's say the kid accidentally just reaching for that. Ooh, you should be more careful. What's wrong with you? Don't say it. What about the light switch? What about the light switch? Just next time you do it. So what should parents do? In both cases, parents should say to the kid, you have to learn to be more careful. Never yell. Don't yell. Just tell the kid you have to be more careful. That's not less important than this. But what the kid hears there is, what's your value system? You're always telling me about Shabbos. Yet there you didn't get upset. Where did you get upset? You got upset over here. I saw a kid said, this is a big Talmud Chacham, a brisker, and this guy is really a God-fearing Jew. And he was sitting with us, this kid must have been about 9, 10 years old. And they were sitting at a table, right next to me. And the kid started moving his hand, and the father grabbed his hand and said, Muksa! Like the kid is no different than if the kid was reaching for a fire. He wasn't angry. He didn't do it in anger. He did it to save him. You're going to burn yourself. You're going to touch something. They say that the Vilna Gaon, when he was a minor, the Vilna Gaon once moved an orange peel on Shabbos by accident. An orange peel is muktzah, because you're not going to eat it. Once you peel the orange, you put it on the table, it's muktzah. And he moved the orange peel, and he fainted, because he transgressed a rabbinic prohibition of muktzah on Shabbos. And then they revived him, and he looked at that orange peel, and he fainted again. He wasn't bar mitzvah yet. So his mother came over, and she picked up the orange peel, made a bracha, and she ate it. So once she showed that the orange peel is edible, so retroactively it wasn't muktzah.
Oh wow! But you say bracha on something that's not.
It is. An orange peel is moderately edible. If it wasn't an orange peel, something else, whatever it was that she was able to make the bracha on, which didn't cause him to faint, you wouldn't make a bracha on a lemon. My younger brother used to eat lemons. There's no bracha on lemon. Normal people do not eat lemons. And my younger brother is the one we don't talk about. What do you call it? He's a Rabbi in a different yeshiva. He doesn't do what do you call it. You don't make a bracha on a lemon. It's like making a bracha on cardboard. Nobody makes a bracha on cardboard, priya cardboard. You don't make a bracha on cardboard. So the priority, what's the priority? That's what it boils down to. How to handle it is something else, but just realize what the message is that's being communicated. What's the message that you're communicating when you get upset over a broken glass and not about and you shouldn't get upset about anything with kids. You know, that's you tell, listen, kid's getting wild, something else. Accidents happen. You know, adults are so unreasonable. You buy your kid a suit. You buy your kid a new pair of pants. And the next day he comes back. He sat on a bus. There was a nail on the bus, and it ripped his pants. And the father goes, "Well, that's it. I'm not buying another pair of pants." The same father has sat in gum. The same father has broken things and has had accidents. Well, you never ripped your pants. Well, why the kid? What do you want? Who in this room has never sat on gum? Everyone's had gum on their thing. By the way, you know how you get it out? You know how you get gum out of clothing? You put your pants or the shirt, you put it in the freezer. You put the pants in the freezer. That it freezes the gum, then you just peel it, it breaks off. If your kid does it, you put your kid in the freezer. Okay. Now, take a look at Pasuk Lamed Gimel. I'll tell you important piece of advice. Pasuk Chav Gimel. 7 lines to the top. Says Moshe Rabbeinu, "Vayitav beinai hadover, va'ekach mikem shneim aser anoshim." Tell you something incredible here. I took 12 men, ish echad l'shavet. Who were these men, gentlemen? Who were these men? The heads of tribes. The heads of tribes. What happens to them? 2 of them succeed. Kalev and Yeshua succeed. The other 10 go off. The spies, they mess up. Page 944. The others go off. Yeshua and, what do you call it? Kalev and Yeshua succeed. The other 10 mess up. When the Jewish people go into the land of Israel, Yeshua, when he brings the people in the land of Israel, he sends spies. He sends Kalev and Pinchas to spy out the land. When they go into the land, they end up by a woman. Her name was Rachav Hazona. Rachav the harlot. And what happens? She hides them. She helps them out. And they make a deal that her family and they'll all be spared. Whatever happened to this woman, Rachav, gentlemen?
She married Yeshua?
She marries Yeshua. Eventually she marries Yeshua. How do you like that? This is a woman who was a harlot for 40 years. And now she marries Yeshua. She eventually marries Yeshua. So look at what happens over here. You have the 12 spies, the 10 men, who are at the pinnacle of spiritual greatness. You have a woman who's the lowest of the low. Can't get any lower. And what ends up happening? They go down, she goes up. And what the Bali Musar compare it to, a tree that's fully grown only has one place to go from there, which is down. A seedling in the ground only has one place to go, which is up. That means in life, which is a better choice? Pick the seedling or pick the tree. It's on the way up or it's on the way down. There are 2 types of Jews. There are only 2 types of Jews in the world. I'm talking about observant Jews. There are only 2 types of observant Jews. What are they? Those who are growing and those who are stagnating. Either you're growing or you're stagnating. Stagnating means you're going down. It doesn't matter what color your clothing is. It doesn't matter what color your yarmulke is, what color your clothing is, as long as it's black. It doesn't matter what color it is. It doesn't matter what color your yarmulke is. Are you a person focused on growth or you're a person who's not? You could wear the biggest black hat with a black tie and payas and eat kogel, but if you're stagnating, you're on the way down. And you could be somebody who's at the beginning of the road. You're in the beginning of the path, but you're on the way up. That's the difference between bracha. It's like a tree and a seedling. When you're looking for a wife, guys ask, what should I look for in a wife? Guys going to go on shidduchim. They start a shidduch. They wonder, what should I be looking for in a wife? There's only one thing that's really important besides money. Besides money. That was a joke. It was a joke. There's only one thing that's important. Is she focused on growth or not? That's all. You need a girl, someone who's focused on growth. It doesn't matter how much she knows. It doesn't matter how much book knowledge she has. She has to be focused on growth. If she wants to grow, you'll grow. Your family will grow. If she feels that I'm good enough as I am, even though I wear the a tichel and I speak Yiddish and my name is Schnitzel, I'm as good. I don't have. There's nothing bad. You feel you're there already. At the point that you think that you're there, that means you're already on the way down. That's the Meraglim. The Meraglim are all the way up there. They're like trees. I had a Rebbe who he wrote a commentary on Rabbi Akiva Eger. One of the greatest, one of the most profound, one of the most difficult to understand commentaries in the Gemara. He's written Svarim on Rabbi Akiva Eger. So he had a loose leaf notebook. He used to keep his notes in a loose leaf notebook. So he was once talking to someone, and I was looking through his notebook. And the back page of his notebook, he had a picture. You ever see those sequoia trees in California, the redwoods, the California redwoods, these trees that could grow 300 feet? He had a picture of somebody had taken a picture of a redwood, a California redwood, from the ground up. So you're looking, the picture is a picture of this tree heading up into the sky. And it says in his notebook. So I said to him, it looks like something a seminary girl would put in her notebook. I said, what's this doing in your notebook? He said, it's a reminder. You always have to grow. Just a reminder, you got to grow. No matter how tall you are, you got to grow. You got to keep growing. If a person says, I'm comfortable with my level, I'm done growing, person like that is on the way down. By definition, you're on the way down. There is no such thing in Yiddishkeit. Remember we once spoke about the ramp on the altar in the Beis Hamikdash? Why is there a ramp and not steps going up the altar?
Modesty, regard for the stones.
Yeah,
That's what the Torah says.
Yeah.
The Torah says modesty, we don't spread. There's a certain, to be discreet. That's the plain meaning. The plain meaning is discreet. You don't spread your legs over the stone and so on. And the steps you have to take.
Stop, you're gonna go down.
What's that?
You stop, you're gonna go down.
Yes.
You can escalate.
If you stop, in other words, on a ramp, if you're walking up steps, a mizbeach, an altar, represents service of God, obviously. We're trying to get to the top of that altar. When you walk up steps, at any point you could stop and hold your position. This is it, I'm at this level. When you're on a ramp, on an incline, depending on how sharp the incline is, you have to constantly propel yourself forward. As soon as you stop propelling yourself forward, you immediately start sliding backwards. That's Yiddishkeit. In Judaism, if we're not moving forward, obviously there are certain times, part of growth is also stopping to solidify our position, to solidify our level. That is part of growth. Part of growth is solidifying our level. But a person has to know we are always in growth mode. We're always in growth mode. If a person stops growing, it says, I'm satisfied with my level. At that point, by definition, they're backsliding. Keep your finger on the place here. Turn to the back, turn to the last pasuk in Parshas Maseh. Where is it? 1 second. No. I don't remember where the pasuk is. No, I wanted to show it to you last time. 1 second. Is it the last pasuk? Just 1 second. No. I don't remember where it is. Okay, I don't want to spend time. I don't want to. The pasuk is about where it says the travels of the Jewish people, and it says they traveled and they stopped. I don't remember where the pasuk is, but a friend of mine pointed out that the stopping points is also part of the growth. In other words, when we're growing, we have to stop and make sure we can't go too fast. We can't jump levels. The jumping level is not healthy either. On the other hand, we have to have constantly focus on growth. That's why I say when it comes to marrying a girl, she doesn't need a lot of book information. As long as, and that's Rachav Hazona. This is a woman who made a life change. She made a commitment. I'm going to change now. From being at the lowest of the low, she wants to grow. And where does she end? She ends up marrying the Jewish leader, Yoshua. Okay. Take a look at pasuk. Where is it? Pasuk Chavav. Back on page 944. Oh, so Moshe Rabbeinu is still continuing with the story of the spies. He says like this. Now, very important because especially going into Tisha B'Av. 9 lines from the top. Vayikchu biyadam mipri haaretz on page 944. They brought back fruit of the earth. Vayoridu eleinu. They brought it down to us. Vayashivu osanu dovar. They brought back a report. Vayomru tova haaretz asher Hashem lokeinu nosei lanu. The land that Hashem is giving us is very good. V'lo avisem lalos, but you did not want to go up. Vatamru espi Hashem elokechem. You rebelled. How does the article translate it? You rebelled against the word of Hashem your God. Vatamru espi Hashem elokechem. So the plain meaning is, God said it's a good land. They brought back a negative report. You got all kvetchy, and you didn't want to go into the land. That's the plain meaning. But one of the Hasidic masters says, Vatamru espi Hashem means you rebelled against the mouth of God. Mouth of God could also be said a godly mouth. That means the mouth of a Torah Jew has to be a godly mouth. And when you start complaining against God, that means you're violating a godly mouth, that you're misusing the mouth. And if a person is with Vatamru espi Hashem, which mouth of God? Your own mouth of God. Your own godly mouth. The mouth that should be used for Torah, the mouth that should be used for tefillah, the mouth that should be used for building people up, you went and you corrupted that mouth. How? By either lying about the land. One of the things you did is you lied. You lied about the land. You said the land is bad, and number 2, you complained. You complained against God. You complained against God. Well, chutzpah. After what He did for you, you complain against God, and that's when a person has a mouth. The mouth we have to keep our mouth godly. It's a difficult thing, probably the most difficult thing in the world. That's why there are 2 coverings. The eye has one covering, the ear has one covering, the mouth has 2 coverings. Got a layer of teeth. The tongue has a layer of teeth, and it's got a layer of lips. Double coverage on dangerous receivers, right? There's double coverage on the mouth. As a reminder that the mouth, think twice. Think twice before, one should think twice before they speak. Because the mouth is a potent weapon. I heard about a woman who had a woman was 7 months pregnant. She's walking on the street, and she's walking on the street, and she's 7 months pregnant, and she has a 3-year-old son who's got some sort of obvious genetic deformity. And another woman sees her as she's walking, and she looks at the kid, and she looks at her belly. She's 7 months pregnant. She looks at the kid, she looks at the belly. She says to her, "Aren't you worried the next one's going to be like that?" That's messed up, right?
Is this your butt?
He says, so to her credit, the woman said to her, "As a matter of fact, I'm not worried at all. Whatever Hashem gives me, I'll be happy with it." That was what the woman said. But the first woman was obviously somebody who had been let out of a cage, right? And she's roving the streets and is a dangerous person. She's a danger. She's a walking nuisance. That's not a godly mouth. A godly mouth is somebody who can use their mouth properly. That's a pi Hashem. My own daughter, my first daughter, got married. So at the wedding, my daughter's there, and there's she had to be there. No, she was invited too, and so she we're at the wedding. And there are certain people who have a knack for always saying the right thing. There are certain people who have a knack for always saying the wrong thing. Sometimes it's people who say what everybody in the room is thinking, right? There are people who sometimes say what everybody, we know, we're all thinking it. They don't need to. So a woman walks over to my daughter. Now this is a bride on her wedding day. A bride on her wedding day, you say nothing to her except how beautiful she looks and wonderful things about her. And this woman looks at her, and she's wearing her wedding gown, And my daughter had picked a wedding gown it was a white wedding gown. It had a little subtle yellow in it. I didn't even know till afterwards, but it had some subtle yellow in it that she had picked out. And this woman looks at her and she goes, "You know there's yellow in that gown." Now, so what my daughter, to her credit, she smiled, she says, "Yeah, I like yellow," to her credit. Now this woman is violating one of the most basic principles. What's my daughter supposed to do? Like, "Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, wow, I better go, let me run and change quick into my gym clothes." Yeah, well, what's she supposed to do at that point? What good does it do to say it at that point? So that's what a pi Hashem. You violated what could have been a godly mouth. And that's what one of the biggest challenges in life. I heard about a guy, by the way. There was a guy who, it walks out, a kolol guy, young guy, walks out of a shul in Bnei Brak. And a Rav sees him, and the Rav walks over to him. He says to him, Are you Chaim Goldstein? He goes, "Yeah." He says, "I gotta give you a Yasher Koyach. Your Shalom Bayis work is tremendous." He looks at him and says, I think you got the wrong guy. He goes, No, it's you. I want to give you a Yasher Koyach. He says, "Listen, I'm married 3 months myself. I'm doing my own Shalom Bayis work, but I've never done any Shalom Bayis." He says, "Yasher Koyach, your Shalom Bayis work is tremendous." He says, "What?" He goes, "I'm a professional marriage counselor. There's a couple in this town who's having terrible Shalom Bayis problems. I've been working them for 6 months, and they made no progress whatsoever. Do you remember 2 weeks ago you were learning in a certain base medrash? There was a 14-year-old boy who was learning by himself in the corner, and you were very impressed." The guy's looking at him, "How do you know this?" He goes, "There was a 14-year-old boy, and his father was sitting in the shul, and you walked up to his father, you said, 'You got a remarkable son over there. That's pretty remarkable, amazing concentration and devotion for a 14-year-old kid. Do you remember that?' He goes, yeah, I was impressed." He goes, "I want to tell you something. That man is the person I'm working with. And one of the biggest reasons they're having trouble is because he's got very low self-esteem. Your compliment picked him up so high, he walked out of that shul, went straight to a florist, bought his wife a bouquet of flowers, bought her a box of chocolate. They're Shalom Bayis. They've been living in Gan Eden for the last 2 weeks, ever since your compliment. What I couldn't do in 6 months, you did with one sentence." Because that's the power of a mouth. That's the power of a mouth. That's a pi Hashem. And a person who spends time, if you encourage people, compliment people, build them up, that's the kedut. Then a person could go daven. Then a person's davening is more potent because you're using your mouth properly. Learning, davening, everything. I'll tell you one other story happened. Was a kid who was off the derech, what they call OTD. Nowadays everything's a letter. He was OTD, off the derech, right? ADD, OTD. There's an FFB, right? You know what FFB stands for, don't you? Frozen from birth, yeah. Actually, from birth, yeah. From birth, fractured from birth, whatever, FFB, whatever they call it, yeah. ADD, ADHD, everything's got letters now. So this kid comes into, they have these yeshivas for kids who are on their way back, for kids who are struggling. So he walks in, and there's a young rabbi there. And the guy told me his story himself. This rabbi told me his story. This young rabbi is there, and the kid sits down, and he starts talking to him. He says, yes, about his background. He says, yeah, I'm from a religious home, but I dumped it all. He said, I don't do anything. I break every rule. I do every avera. He says, a couple of weeks ago on Shabbos, I decided I wouldn't smoke on Shabbos. He says, I went about 4 or 5 hours into Shabbos. After 5 hours, I said, the heck with it. And I started smoking. So the rabbi says to him, listen, I'll make you a deal. You come from a religious background. You know as well as I do, when you do an avera, there are consequences. I will gladly take the consequences of your smoking if you'll give me the reward for those 5 hours that you didn't smoke. He looks and goes, yo, what's up with that? That's how teenagers speak. That's the most sophisticated sentence you'll hear. Yo, what's up with that? So he goes, I'll tell you what's up with that. For those 5 hours that you weren't smoking, the angels in heaven were dancing around and saying, look, there's a guy who wants to smoke and he's not. I will gladly take the consequences if you give me the reward. From that one sentence, the kid became a Shomer Shabbos. How do you like that? One sentence, became a Shomer Shabbos. So he still smokes, not on Shabbos. From one word, one sentence. Say how could you do that? Now look at the next line. Vateragnu ba'olechem. You complained in your tents. There's a better word than complain. What does the article say? You slandered in your tents. No, I don't like that. Vateragnu, you were kvetching. That's the best word. You were kvetching in your tents. Oy! That's vateragnu. That's the definition of vateragnu is oy! Whatever, however you translate that. Vatomru, and you said, Besinas Hashem osanu, because Hashem hates us, Hotzianu me'eretz mitzrayim, He took us out of Egypt. L'seisosanu biyada Amori, to put us in the hands of the Amori in the land of God. You came back after you heard the complaint of the spies, you were in your tents, and you say, oh, Hashem hates us, took us out of Mitzrayim, so we should get slaughtered. That's the classic mistake people make. That people think sometimes, look what we're going through. Hashem hates us. He's putting us through this difficulty, got ballistic missiles, and we got people chasing us and anti-Semitism. Hashem must hate us. That's a classic mistake. Hashem does not. Hashem loves us. He wants us to improve. A father who spanks his child doesn't mean he hates him. To the contrary, father who spanks his child means that he cares about the kid. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu once in a while spanks us. But to think that Hashem hates us is what destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. That was on Tisha B'Av. Even the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash was for our benefit. The destruction of the Beis Hamikdash was to wake us up. It was a wake-up call. So Rabbi Weinbach used to say, there's a famous story, there's an artist who's out on the landscape, he's painting this landscape. He's got this beautiful, he's painting the entire horizon, he's got this beautiful painting. And what do you do when after you finish a painting? So you got to get a good look at it, so how do you get a good look at a painting? Kind of move back. Yeah, you move back. I think you have to tilt your head on an angle also. I think that's a halacha. That you have to tilt your head on, and that means you look sophisticated. And he moves back to get a look at this painting. Now he's out in the wilderness. And he starts moving back, and he's moving back to get a better look, to get a better picture of this painting. And some guy standing down at the distance sees he's backing up, sees the artist is backing up, and behind him he doesn't notice there's a cliff. And the artist keeps backing up, he's getting closer and closer, because the guy yells, hey, stop, and he can't hear him. He can't hear him, and he keeps backing up. So with no choice, this guy runs over, and he takes his fist, and he punches it right through the canvas, right through the painting. At that moment, the artist, he stops, and he says, why did you? He said, turn around. And he looks, he's this far from the precipice, they're falling off. Kodesh Baruch Hu saw Klal Yisrael, we're backsliding. We're digressing, we're backsliding. We need a wake-up call. And he tried waking us up. And Klal Yisrael, he had prophets. They came in, they tell you, nothing worked. So what did he do? He put a fist through the portrait. He destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. That's the wake-up call. That's for our benefit. Hashem doesn't hate us. Did it ever happen to you? Like, by the way, remember it said, Miriam waited for Moshe Rabbeinu. You know what the Gemara says? What was Miriam's reward for waiting for Moshe Rabbeinu? And we said earlier today that Hashem pays Mida Keneged Mida. They got Vayachperu, so they dug their graves, right? You get what you deserve. HaKadosh Baruch Hu pays Mida Keneged Mida, what they call quid pro quo. Miriam, the Gemara says, she waited for Moshe Rabbeinu for a few moments, an hour, however long it was. She was by the Nile when Moshe Rabbeinu was thrown in. She waited there, right? What happens? The entire Jewish people waited for Miriam. Mida Keneged Mida. For how long? 7 days. That doesn't seem fair. But nobody ever complains about that. When something bad happens, people say, why me? Why me? Why me? When a guy wins the lottery, no one who's won the lottery have ever started crying and said, why me? Why me? No, crying in joy, but they don't say, why me? Sometimes people just say, well, it's about time. Nobody says, why me? Right? That we kind of assume things should be good. And when something unpleasant happens, why me? That's not fair. You waited for a few moments and you were rewarded. The entire Jewish people waited for you when she had saras. She's outside the camp with leprosy for 7 days and everybody waits for her. because the Gemara says, Mida Meruba, Mida Tova Meruba. The rate of payment for doing good things, the rate of reward is higher than the rate of punishment. You get paid at a higher rate. So that means Hashem hates us or he loves us? He obviously loves us. So why do people go through difficulties? Sometimes the father has to pudge. Sometimes a person needs a difficulty. Didn't it ever happen to you, gentlemen? Didn't you ever say to yourself, boy, am I glad I didn't do something that you thought to do, and at a certain point you said, boy, am I glad I didn't invest in that. You thought you were going to, and in the end, you couldn't get there, and you couldn't get a hold of your broker. Boy, am I glad I didn't get a hold of that guy. Boy, am I glad I didn't do the. Boy, am I glad I didn't go to that wedding. Boy, am I glad I. Didn't it ever happen to you? It happens all the time. Well, what stopped us? Obviously, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is helping us out over there. So if HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, go into the land of Israel, you're kvetching in your tents, Hashem hates us. That's the ultimate chutzpah. The ultimate chutzpah is to feel that Hashem hates us. The Gemara says there's a guy who wants to go traveling. He's a businessman, and he gets a thorn in his foot. And he's like, oh man, now he gets an infection, now I can't go on the trip. And his buddy, his colleague goes on the ship. And a day or two later, he hears the ship sank. How do you think he feels at that point? That means he got a thorn in his foot. Sure, he got a thorn in his foot, but at the end of the day, that thorn in his foot saved his life. So sometimes something happens, a person doesn't know. What. I had a guy here once, the guy told me his grandfather, the guy in Ohr Somayach, his grandfather was in the Holocaust, and he was given a job. He had to do something with some metal, with frozen metal. I don't remember what it was, but he got a piece of metal stuck in his hand. And the camp doctor came to the barracks and said he's going to have to pull the metal out. It's going to hurt like anything, but he can't yell, because if you yell, the Nazi guard's doesn't want to hear you yelling. He's going to get upset. So he's going to pull out this thing because the hand's infected. I'm going to pull this thing out. It's going to hurt like blazes, but whatever you do, don't yell. So he starts pulling out this piece of metal out of his hand, and the guy at a certain point goes, he couldn't take it. The Nazi guard comes in, takes his bayonet. He had a rifle with a bayonet, bayoneted him in the thigh, and and he dragged him around the room on the end of the bayonet. Okay. The thigh got infected, and it looked like the thigh was going to have to be, and the leg was going to have to be amputated. In the meantime, they went on the death march. They pulled them out of the death march, where they made the Jews march at some side. I don't remember how many miles it was in frozen weather. I think three quarters of the people died on the march itself. So, and you couldn't stop. You had to march. And if you stopped, they shot you. And this guy's walking along on his infected thigh, and at a certain point, he couldn't take any more steps. He just collapsed, but he happened to collapse into some bushes. And they didn't notice him. He survived the war. His grandson told me the story. Now, when at the point he got bayoneted, what did it sound like? Not so good. And that's the thing that ends up saving his life. So for a person to go and say Hashem hates us, that's the ultimate chutzpah. Why is he doing it? We don't know why he does it. We don't know everything why Hashem does it. Sometimes it's unpleasant. Person needs, for whatever reason, but not that Hashem hates us. That's the last thing. That's the worst possible avera, is to think that Hashem hates us, no matter what the difficulties are. Okay, one more point. In Pasuk Lamed Aleph, so Moshe Rabbeinu continues with the story, 4 lines to the bottom. Uvamidbar asher ra'isa, in the desert which you saw, asher nisa'acha Hashem elokecha, Hashem carried you, kasher yisa ishes beno, as a man carries his child. B'chol ha'derech asher alachtem ad borachem ad hamokom, Hashem carried you as a man carries his child. And the word yisa also means he elevated you. Gentlemen, have you ever traveled with children? Okay. The last time I traveled with children was about 30 years ago. And there's no coincidence. That there is a certain amount of cause and effect there. I traveled with 5 kids. My oldest was 8. My youngest was 6 months, to visit my wife's parents. And I said to her, after that, I managed to somehow avoid it. Traveling with children is like trying to, it's like trying to eat soup with a fork. And it was just absolutely torture. And just to get, I remember because my wife lives in Columbus, Ohio. We had to leave from Nevaeh, we had to get to the airport here. We had to fly to Belgium, from Belgium to Cincinnati, from Cincinnati to Columbus. There were 5 legs on the journey. And I remember just packing up to take the van, get them to the airport here in Israel, and my wife and I looked at ourselves, we're already worn out. That's an hour of travel, worn out complete. We just looked at each other and said, that was the first leg of the journey. It's an unbelievable, you're traveling through a desert over here with 2.5 million people, women, children, the entire thing. On wings of eagles, the Torah says. Va'esa eschem al kanfei nesharim, the Torah says back in Shmos. I carried you out on the wings of eagles. What does that mean? It means that they moved along in a way that normally wouldn't happen. You know what it would take to move 2.5 million people? Just move your family. You know what it takes? A family going out for a Sunday picnic. What that does to parents. And here Hashem picked you up like a father carrying his son. How a father picks up his son, you just move along. It was effortless. Appreciate what Hashem did. Took you out of Mitzrayim, carried you through. And you have the chutzpah to say that Hashem hated you. All right, TBC.